Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we're doing kindergarten to grade 2 English lesson on simple verb tenses. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade kindergarten to 2, basically grade 2. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of simple verb tenses. All right. So our chapter is simple verb tenses. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade kindergarten to 2. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of simple verb tense review is the sentence in the past, present, or future tense? That is going to be our lesson for today. Is the sentence in the past, present, or future tense? All right, so whenever you hear tenses, right, then we know tenses are either your present tense, it is your past tense, or it is your future tense, right? The past tense is something that happened in the past. A present tense is something that is happening now. And then we have our future tense, right? And the future tense, it basically shows something that must still happen or will happen. That is our future tense. So these are the different tense. And when we talk about the verbs, verb tenses, right, then it means that it is action. It's something or the action that happens in that specific tenses, whether it is in the past, whether it is in the present, or in the future. And when we look at the first one, right, which is the present tense. So the present tense verb, remember firstly, a verb is a doing word, right? It's the something that we are doing. So when we look at the present tense verb, then the present tense verb tells you about something that is happening now. It is the action or something that is happening now. That is a verb or the verb tense. And most of our verbs, right, are regular. And when we say most of our verbs are regular, and then it means that we need to follow a rule when it comes to our verb tenses. And the specific rule that we need to follow, right, is like saying that our regular present verb tense or present tense, right, it ends basically with either s or es. So most present tense verbs are regular. They have no ending. So it's either the ending s or es. So two verbs, right, are irregular in the present tense, which is to be or to have. So the two verbs, right, would be irregular, and that will be to be or to have. And you must remember their forms. And then we have the past tense, right? We have the past tense. Keeping in mind, keeping in mind that the present tense, we said it ends with s or es. That is our present tense. But now our past tense verb. The past tense verb tells you about something that has already happened. It is in the past. If something happened this morning, then it's in the past. If something even happened a few hours ago or an hour ago, it is not in the past, because if you're going to make a reference of it, if you're going to tell somebody about something that, happened an hour ago, you are going to tell it to them in the past. If you're going to tell them that you were watching TV, right? Then you'll say, I watched TV. Now I watch TV, or he watches TV. When we talk about irregular, right, then it means that it doesn't, let's say, for example, there's no rule that it follows. Like, for example, we said they have with present tense, right? Let's make an example of the past tense. If the past tense is regular, right, then we would say our words are going to, then we will say, for example, I watched or I danced, right? These are regular verbs in the past, because now all you do is you have your word, for example, play, right? But to show that you did that in the past, right? So you were playing a game in the past. So now I play, but in the past I played. So you just add an ed to show the past tense verb. That's a regular past tense verb, right? But if the verb is irregular, right? If it's irregular, then it means that it doesn't follow a rule by saying add an ed or add a d to show the verb tense, right? With irregular past tense, you, for example, say you're going to have to know the verb. You're going to have to know the past tense form of the verb if it changes. For example, now I can say I sing a song, and in the past, I sang. So do you see how the wording changes, right? The same with think. This is an irregular verb, think. In the past, I thought. So the wording changes, right? Because it's now not just saying, okay, add an ed, add a d, almost like to show that there's a rule that you need to follow, right? It's like the word changes. So I can't say, okay, remove this and then you add that. I can't say that. You are going to have to, when it comes to irregular um, tenses, you are just going to have to remember the tenses because there's no rule that it follows. Like, for example, sing and sang, sit or sat, think or thought. You're going to have to remember that the past tense of think is thought. You're going to have to remember that the past tense of sing is sang. You're going to have to remember that the past tense of sit is sat, or run is ran, for example, right? Because there's no rule that it follows where it says just add an ed or add a d, right? So irregular verbs or irregular tenses does not follow rules. We can't say just add an s or es because the wording changes when it's in the past tense or when it's either plural or so on, right? Is that a bit better? Is that explanation better? All right. So now we have our past tense verbs, and the past tense verbs, they tell you about something that has already happened, right? Like I say, whether it was an hour ago, it's in the past, right? So with a past tense verb, most past tense verbs are regular. And that is the example that I just made, regular by adding an ed or adding a d. So they end in ed, right? And we made a few examples of regular past tense verbs like watched. We added ed to show the past tense. I watched a movie a few hours ago. I watched a movie. I play a game now. In the past tense, I played a game. I dance to my favorite song now, but in the past tense, I danced to my favorite song, right? So these are regular past tense because they say they end in ed, meaning it's a rule that we follow by saying you need to add ed or d all the time. But then some of our verbs are irregular in the past tense, right? And remember, we said if it's irregular in the past tense, then you must remember the past tense form because we cannot say add ed, add d. We cannot say do that. There's no rule that you follow where it's going to be like a repetitive thing, right? With irregular past tense, you're going to have to remember the form of that verb. And we made examples of sit, I sit now. Earlier on, I sat on my chair. I think about the answer. Oopsie. I think about the answer. Yesterday, I thought about the answer. Now, I take I take something from the fridge. This morning, I took something from the fridge. So, do you see how the wording changes by the irregular past tense? There's no rule that we follow, not adding ed. The wording even changes. So, which means that you are going to have to remember the past tense form of the verb, right? All right. So now we also have our future tense, right? And the future tense verbs, it tells you about something that is going to happen, meaning it did not happen yet. It's not happening now. It must still happen. It is going to happen. So whether it is going to be tomorrow, whether it's going to be next week, whether it's going to be next month, next year, that is the future tense. Remember, future doesn't mean okay, in 5 years time I want to be, or one day when I grow up I want to be a future doesn't necessarily just mean in 5 years or 10 years time, right? Anything that is going to happen means that it is in the future. Tomorrow is also in the future, right? Because it did not happen yet. It is going to happen. Do we know what's going to happen? No, we don't know what's going to happen as yet, right? And when it comes to future tenses, right? All future tense verbs, they use the word will because it means that you are saying that you are going to do something. I will do something. She will do something, right? And that will show in the future. And like I say, future can either be tomorrow, can be next week, can be this weekend, can be next month, next year, right? That can be the future. And if we look at an example, right, of how we can use future tense, in the present tense, right, here we have in the present, here we have in the past, and here we have the future, right? So now we're going to look at how we can use words in the present, that same word in the present, in the past, and in the future, right? If we say that, if I'm going to look at the first word that I see, Elizabeth, right? If we say that Elizabeth walks to school, right? So here we say, remember, if you make mention of one person, we say the person walks, right? If we say more than one person, then we say walk. So it's almost like saying Elizabeth and Basil walk to school, but only Elizabeth walks to school, right? That shows the present tense. It shows that they're doing that now, or it shows that she's doing that now, right? So in the present tense, it's either they walk to school or she walks to school. In the past, which is maybe yesterday, we can say they walked to school or Elizabeth walked to school. And this is a regular past tense. It ends with an ed, right? So this is the regular tense. But now in the future, Monday, when Elizabeth or Basil goes to school, right, then we can say they will walk to school because it means that it is something that is going to happen. So now we say that Elizabeth and Basil will walk to school, right? And that shows the future tense. Here we have an example of an irregular tense. Irregular tense, right? Once again, if more than one person does something, we can say they go. If one person does something, we can say goes, right? So he goes to school, for example, or he goes home. They go home. In the past, This is not the past tense form of the word go or goes. And this is irregular. We can say they went home. You see, we did not add an ed because this is irregular. So we can say they went or she went home. Oh, peculiar. So peculiar. Beautiful name. So in the past, we say they went or he went or she went because this is an irregular past tense. We did not follow any rule. As you can see, look at how the wording changes from go in the present to went in the past. And then in the future, we can say whether it's next week, Monday, tomorrow, they will go home. Peculiar will go home. Right? So this shows the future tense will go, will walk, will sit. Right? And that shows the future tense. Right? So these are simple verb tenses. It looks very busy on the screen, right? But we have the present tense and it tells you about something that is happening now. In the present, it is something that is happening now. And we say that most of our verbs are regular and it ends with S or ES. Then we have the past tense verb that tells us about something that has already happened. It's in the past. It happened already. And if we make mention of a regular past tense, and then our regular past tense are going to end with an ed or a d. For example, watched or played or danced. But then we have some of our irregular past tense that shows us that something has happened already. And that you're going to have to remember. You're going to have to remember the past tense form of the irregular past tense because there's no rule that it follows. And it is example like sit or sat, thought, ran, sang. And then we have our future verb tense. And our future tense tells us about something that is going to happen. And remember, future tense, it uses the word will before the verb. It uses the word will before the verb. So will walk, will go, will sing, will think, will dance, will watch, will play. Right? And we call these simple verb tenses. You have your present tense, you have your past tense, and you have your future tense. These are simple verb tenses. All right, so now we're going to a+students.ca, right? Our chapter is simple verb tenses, and we are going to grade 2. And the lesson that we are focusing on now is the sentence in the past, in the present, or future tense? So we are going to identify that. All right, so here it is. Which tense does the sentence use? We must say if it is present tense, if it's past tense, or future tense. My parents named the baby after his grandpa. My parents named the baby after his grandpa. Named, is that the present tense, past tense, or future tense? we're going to start the test. Just give us like 2 minutes. So my parents named the baby after his grandpa. Named. Is that the present tense, the past tense, or future? And if we were to look at the word named, right? Named is in the past tense. So we can say this is past tense. Linda needs a new pair of shoes. Needs. Is this present tense? Is this past tense or future tense? Present tense, past tense, or future tense? Linda needs a new pair of shoes. And if we look at the word needs, remember we said with the present tense, right? We add an S. So this is the present tense, right? Linda needs a new pair of shoes. She needs it now. Not need it in the past, not will need in the future. She needs, meaning now, right? All right, one more and then we go to our test. The boy helps his father after school. The boy helps his father after school. Look at the word helps. It ends with an S. Is that the present tense, the past tense, or future tense? The boy helps his father after school. And if you look at the word helps, right, it is something that is happening now. The word also, the verb ends with an S, so we can say that is the present tense. It's something that is doing now, the present tense. If we were to say the boy helped his dad, then that would be the past. And if we say the boy will help, then that will be the future. All right. So now we're going to our test where we are going to say, is it? Is the sentence in the past, present, or future? All right, we need to say which tense does the sentence use. It says, the clown jumps through the ring. Jumps, is it option one, past tense, option two, present tense, or option three, future tense? And if we were to choose the tense, this is the tense that the test is. The clown jumps through the ring. Do we say it is option one, the past tense, option two, the present tense, or option three, the future tense? And yes, we can say jumps. It's something that the clown is doing now. So we can say it is option two, present tense. So well done. Present tense is correct. All right, we will camp for 2 nights. We will camp for 2 nights. Will camp. Look at the word will camp. Is that in the past tense? Is that in the present tense? Or is that in the future tense? Will camp. Will camp. So we will camp for 2 nights. Will camp. Is that in the past? Is that in the present? Or is it future tense? And if we were to choose which tense the sentence uses, we will say it's in the future. Remember, we said the future tense shows or uses the word will. It uses the word will in front of our verb. So well done. Yes, option three is correct. Future tense. Well done. Future tense. His dog chased the chipmunk. His dog chased the chipmunk. Chased. Chased. Is chased past tense? Is chased future tense or present tense? Chased. His dog chased the chipmunk up a tree. So chased is that in the past tense, option one, present tense, option two, or future tense, option three. His dog chased the chipmunk. Chased. Yes, so we can say his dog chased. Remember, we said if it ends with a D or ED, then it is in the past tense. So chased is in the past tense. Well done. Chased is in the past tense, which is option one. Sings. Mrs. Merritt sings a pretty song. Sings a pretty song. So Mrs. Merritt sings a pretty song. Is it option one, past tense, option two, present tense, or option three, past tense? And if we were to choose the correct one, then yes, present tense is correct. Well done. That is the present tense. It's something that Mrs. Merritt does now. She's singing now. She sings now. Ross will wash the dishes after dinner. Ross will wash the dishes after dinner. Will wash. So, will wash is that past tense, present tense, option two, or future tense, option three. Will wash. Will wash. Remember, it's something that did not happen yet. Will wash. And if we were to choose the correct tense, Ross will wash the dishes. Remember, after dinner. We're having dinner now, right? So after dinner, will wash, which is in the future tense, because it's something that must still happen. So at the party, this is the last one. At the party, the sisters danced together. Danced. Is dance the past tense? Is dance the present tense? Or is dance the future tense? Danced together. And if we were to choose the correct option, we can say danced. It's in the past. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade twos. We did simple verb tenses and we said we have verbs that happens or actions that happens in the present, in the past, in the future. Present tense shows us something that is happening now. The past tense shows something that happened already, and the future tense shows something that will happen. It did not happen yet. So this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade twos. I really hope that you're going to have a good weekend further. Goodbye.